means I get to throw out the garbage and clean up after everybody's gone. I'm pretty artistic at throwing out the garbage. But at any rate, in 2006, they dragged me kicking and screaming to the foot of Buddha and asked if I would take over the Passion Play and do some revamping. And since I had a theater background, I was on the board. I was like, okay, I'll do it. And I promise you, and you may not believe this, but I promise you, when I came on the board in 2001 because I was Cuban, and they needed a Cuban guy on the board, of course they would say, no, it's not because you're Cuban, because you're an educator and you're a theater person, and okay, you're Cuban. But I speak like a gringo, so I speak very badly. But at any rate, in 2001 I said this would be great. I remember the Park Theater as being a force in the community, and I always went by it. And I was looking at it like you look at the mothership in Independence Day. And it was always very fun to look at it. So I jumped on the chance to be on the board and to help steer the committee. And in 2006, I was surprised that they had asked me to do it, and I was like, okay, I had seen the Passion Play in 2004 or 2003, and it had been the first time I'd seen it. I had heard about it. And it was great. It was wonderful. The audiences were great, and I think those early 2000s were the last really good years in terms of attendance, where you could do 10 shows, 12 shows, 18 shows. In 2006, I came in and I swore the Hippocratic oath. I said, I will not harm this play because it's not mine to harm. And what I meant by harm is I would not touch it and let it exist as it was. And as the times went by, 2007, 2008, so on, I felt comfortable putting on my stamp on the production. Not because I wanted to so much, and you may not believe that, but because I guess the times were different, and storytelling became different. So I bring it up because when they asked me to do it, I got to meet a bunch of the cast members, and I got to meet the director I was replacing, and I got to meet so many people who I really cherish baton passing. I really am that. And I felt that the baton was an important baton. And I didn't want to drop it. And I said, I'm going to celebrate this cast. I'm going to make sure there's a day that they receive the kudos that only a theater person would know you get when you're here alone in the dark, or you're here alone after the crowd is gone, or you're here alone and you're forever alone and no one knows you. And because I was put in the position that I was put in, I took it because, you know, humans are about rituals, humans are about theater, humans are about doing things over and over again. And I said to myself, I want this day for this cast, and I want this day for this crew, and I want this day for these composers and lyricists. I want this day. So today is that day. I wish it were in a completely funded casino in the park, you know, overlooking Manhattan kind of thing, but, you know, this is as intimate as we can get and still enjoy each other's presence, and that's all right with me. So I wanted to say to you, this is the day that I built up when I saw you guys, and I wanted it to be special, and I'm glad that you're here. I wish some of the other people were here, but like a father who sees a little bit more than the youngster who's moaning and groaning at him, I didn't want to push the envelope and ask people to get here, get here, get here. I wanted people committed to coming. So this is a great day. This is a great day because you guys have kept the history of the Passion Play going. 100 productions of the Passion Play. Give yourselves a round of applause. And in those 100 years, the changes, oh my goodness, the changes and the history and the baton passing. And you, for some reason, are the 100th cast and crew and composers. And you will be documented in a really bad photo picture, I guess, or some others, and Facebook and all that. But for whatever reason, you are the ones who will pass it to the next century. And who knows what's going to happen in the future with these moments. Who knows if they're going to be just on Instagram and not live. And unless you make it a moment, and unless you fight for human moments, these things can be completely dismissed. And I wanted to tell you that it shouldn't be. I've been here for 2 years operating the park without an executive director, and like Vishnu, and like Sergio, and like Anne, trying to do things together. And there are moments when we complain, and there are moments when we wish, gosh, I wish $50,000 would come our way. What magic we could do with 50 grand. But I also know this. You know, those casts, it couldn't have been easy for them to do those shows in the 100 years. And in the 20s, when no one had a pot to call their own, and no one in the 30s knew where the Industrial Revolution was going to get us, and the mystery of the 40s, I imagine that these people who fought to put the Passion Play on, Father Greek, who had been dying in the 30s and wanted to keep it going, and our own Father Paco here sitting and saying, Holly, the history, and I'm like, no, I'm on your side. And Father Ash with his carnival barker way of getting people to commit money to it. But I often think when I'm moaning and groaning and complaining, and I'm looking at Veronica and going, how am I, what am I doing to this poor person who's got to do 1,000 things, or Sergio, or Sixto, or Jay, or you'll meet them all. But I say, we're human, and we want things to exist, and we want this to move forward. And I can imagine the Christs along the 100 years, and the Judases along the 100 years, and the Marys, and everyone, in their human moments of being afraid, and they're bargaining with God, and they're going, I did play Christ for you. I wasn't married. Help me out. And those men in the 40s who must have been in the trenches, playing apostles, and here at home having old men and women playing apostles because we couldn't get enough men. Why am I complaining? I don't need to complain. I have to move it forward. I don't mean I have to move it forward. I mean the storytelling has to be moved forward because it is human. Israel created a state in 1948. They did two things immediately. They created a boundary and an army so that they could protect their boundary, and they created a national theater because stories are important. So as we nod to the past and we invoke hope for the future, I want to say that this is a human endeavor. We are a deliberate community. We've come together to acknowledge effort and energy where no one in the world in Hudson County. I called a friend of mine and said, "You want to go to dinner? I've been hearing stories that you need dinner." He texts me and says, I'm not free until June 25th. But June 25th? This is May 20th. Who can live with such an agenda? You lose your humanity. You start to believe the naysayers that the computers will take over the world. You know what, computers, they don't get along. Computers have to be networked. People, we don't get along, but we don't have to be networked. We have to create relationships. And so what I'm saying to you guys is, this is just the beginning. In October, I hope to start a centennial celebration. That means, folks, 1915 to 2015, an entire year of celebrating this darn story. And we'll need more help. We'll need you guys to text. Then we'll open up the house downstairs and have 1,200 people. Then you'll be able to say, wow, look at what we can do when we create and decide to create, like you did when you decided to come here, or like you guys did when you decided to band together and create the music. Or like when Father Paco did when he said to the Archdiocese, this is an important place, we should not let it go. So I say to you guys, this is a great day. I humbly give you acrylic and whatever that is there. I wish I could give it to you in a stronger sense, but humans are about tokens. I once held a silver medal in my hand that was money in 2,000 years ago. It was the head of Caesar. You know, the head of Caesar. You know the coin in the play? I once held an actual, a friend of mine was a curator at a museum. He called me up at night and says, Carl, I've got real stuff from Julius Caesar. You want to come touch it? And I did. I wanted to. I went there and I held it in my hand. And 2,000 years, it was a token. So I give you a token of my esteem. I give you a token of my respect. And I give you a token day. But my admiration for you guys is never ending. I just want to make sure that you understand that we ultimately cannot do it alone. We ultimately need another 500 people to band together and create another 100 years, because the next 100 years are going to be oh so difficult. To keep stories alive. Okay. Thank you and good night. I'd like to mention something in terms of the cast. I'm not going to ask the cast to speak. I'm just going to ask the cast to come up one at a time. I will give you your token and your centennial medal, and then I'd like to take like a group picture here for everybody of the cast, and then we'll individually ask the crew and the composers to come up. Is that okay? I appreciate that. So everyone in the cast, please come on up and receive their award.